Welcome back to another episode of BPL TV. Today we're actually in the lab. I'm up here at the command station. Micah, you're out there in the cage. What do we got going on today?
So today we're going to talk about power testing.
Right, and this is like the simplest, easiest way to understand the lower body power, the core and the upper body power for your athletes. Something we're doing with everyone that comes through here. In fact, we're going to share with you the results of one of the top high school programs here in the state and one of the top programs in the country over the last decade. What's the first one we want to look at, Micah?
We'll start with vertical jump.
Okay, perfect. Here we go. So what, just talk to us a little bit. What do we got going on here?
Yeah, so here we have one of the athletes doing the vertical jump testing, and basically what we're trying to see is what's the capacity in which their lower body can produce power. So we'll usually give them about 3 jumps. And if that third jump is not the highest of the jumps, they can just keep going until they don't jump any higher.
Right. Okay. And what's who's the player we got here?
So we have Gavin Guidry right here. He's currently deciding between 2 pretty big powerhouse SEC schools. Really good athlete, 2-way guy, pitcher, hitter. Really good kinematic sequence, everything.
So when we look at this, obviously it's lower body power, but a couple other things, we're going to see players struggle on this if, they fail pelvic tilt.
Right.
It's going to be something. So it could be strength related if you don't get the score you're looking for. It could be movement quality. What kind of numbers are we seeing here from top high school players?
Yeah, so for him, he's jumping about 24 inches right there. And on average for varsity level high school players, we're seeing about 23 inches. So he's a little bit above average. What we're looking for like most D1 players is like in that 24 to 26 inch range.
Okay, all right, perfect. Let's look at our next one here. All right, what do we got going on here?
Yeah, so this is our favorite right here, the med ball sit up and throw. So here we're trying to see what kind of capacity they have in the core. But what really is important here is the ability to kind of coordinate the body to do this throw. So those first 3 throws we'll see from the athlete can be very, very different as they start to kind of get the coordination and feel for this one.
Yeah, it's they have to sit up a little bit, just enough to get their shoulder blades off the ground, and the core's really got to provide a stable base for them to throw with their arms. Absolutely 100% across the board, the poorest performance of every athlete in this horsepower test.
Absolutely. Yeah, usually we're seeing, again, that 23 inch vertical, about average for all these players. Here we're looking at an average of about 18 feet.
Right, okay, so let's go. What do we got here? Okay, so we got chest pass there.
Yep, so this is a final test for the power testing. What we're looking for here is we want them to be able to chest pass this as far as possible, obviously, but we also want to make sure they're not coming off the bucket because we want to isolate the chest. We don't want too much legs, we don't want too much core. We're trying to isolate the chest, see how far they can throw it. Now, most of these guys are getting it around 21 feet. Yeah. So again, when we're looking at this, kind of putting it all together, see a pretty big dip there in that core number.
Right, and we're gonna take a look at some of Gavin's output data, both ground force, video, 3D. Let's talk a little bit more about how we do those tests. So, first question, what size med ball are you using?
Yeah, so we're going to use a 4 kilo med ball for any high school or older athletes, about 8.8 pounds.
All right. And then if we're working with softball players, whereabouts are we going to go there? High school and up?
High school softball, high school and up, we're looking at 4-pound medicine ball.
Right, okay. So, pretty simple tests, obviously a lot we can learn from them. Let's say, how do we actually relate that to outcome? Like, let's talk about actually hitting the ball now. What would be some things, that we're going to rate it against?
Yeah, so when we're looking at exit velocity, what we've found is you can take the kind of the sum of those 3 power tests and multiply that by about 1.3, 1.35 off the tee to basically get a high-end output on exit velocity.
Right, and it's jumping up to, typically from these athletes, they're obviously, pretty far above average, they're about 1.45 exit velocity to horsepower ratio on front tops.
Correct.
So Now let's take a look. The athlete who we're showing you there from Barbe High School, Gavin Goodry, he was the most efficient in terms of that output ratio. So let's just take a look, a couple of things and see how he did it. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and get this playing on loop, but Michael, what was he putting up for exit velo here?
Yes, he was averaging off front tops about 86 miles an hour, topped out like right just short of 92 miles an hour. So when we're doing that math, I mean that's there at that top end.
And his horsepower rating was what?
So his horsepower, he had a 24-inch vertical, 18 sit up and throw, and 21 on the chest pass. So we're looking at about 63 there.
Okay, so definitely the most efficient of anyone that we've measured, 1.5.
Right. And now when we talk about those things, we can look at when a player comes in for baseline testing, we can look at where that weak link is. And if you increase that weak link by, let's say, 4 feet on any of the throws or 4 inches on the vertical jump, you're looking at up to 6 mile an hour gain in exit velocity.
Right, and it's super important. The season's right around the corner. So this is something that's really easy for you to do with any and all of your athletes. You put them through the power testing and then just spend a little more energy training whichever one of those tests came up the lowest, right? So if it's core, like most high school players, well, every high school player we've tested, then you're gonna go, back to the drawing board, make sure pelvic tilt is passed and start to work on, exercises that are complementary to that test. And like Micah was saying, for every foot you gain in that throw, you're going to get about 1.5 miles an hour of exit velocity potential. So great way to get the most out of the limited training time we have between now and the start of the season.